Bonjour, it's Mrs. Gibbons here. Hope you're well. So this week in French, we're going to do something slightly different. We are going to revise some of the vocabulary, so the words that we've covered this year so far, and we're going to do that by you becoming the teacher. So it's your turn to be a teacher. So I found that it's a really good way of revising vocabulary is to teach it to someone else, because obviously when you're going to teach it to someone else, you'll have to make your resources, you'll have to plan what you're going to do, then you'll teach the lesson. So that gives you lots and lots of practice of those words. So your task this week is to choose some of the vocabulary we've covered this year. Now, all of that is on a document, on a vocabulary sheet, which is on the website. You are not having to teach everything, you're just going to choose one topic. So it could be zoo animals, for example, or it could be family members. You're then going to plan a lesson to teach to someone else. That could be someone you live with. But obviously, I know lots of people are really busy working from home, etc. So that might not be possible. But you could teach a lesson via some kind of video call, Zoom, etc. to a friend, grandparent. You could obviously also teach to a brother or sister at home. So there's no reason, it doesn't have to be someone that you live with. You could prepare a lesson and do it virtually, just like we are at the moment. So just as a reminder, the topics that we've covered this year. So we started off the year with body parts, looking at arms, legs, that sort of thing, and adjectives to describe them. Then we looked at animals, so zoo animals mainly. Then more recently, we've been looking at family members and also brothers and sisters, being able to ask the question, do you have a brother or a sister, and being able to answer. So you're going to choose one of those topics. Like I've said, all the vocabulary that you need is on the sheet, which has been uploaded onto the website along with this video. So the first thing you need to think about is, once you've decided what topic you're going to do, how are you going to introduce those words to your pupils? So most of the time when we're learning new vocabulary, the teacher would introduce it in French, so they tell you the words in French, then they get you to repeat it, so you get used to how to pronounce it, and then you would do lots and lots of practice of those words. So you might play some games, etc. So you might want to use technology and do something like a PowerPoint presentation or a Google Slides presentation, which is great because obviously you can then have words appearing, disappearing, you can make pictures be hidden, that sort of thing. So you can do all sorts of activities with that. Or obviously some people don't have access to a computer, which is absolutely fine. You can do something called flashcards. So there's a picture here of someone teaching body parts with flashcards. For a flashcard, basically you get some paper and you draw a picture of the thing you're trying to introduce. So let's say body parts, you would draw an arm, for example. And it's really useful when you're introducing a new word in a foreign language if the word is written down as well. So here, for example, you can see she's got a picture of a mouth and then underneath it says la bouche. So when you're learning that language and repeating it, it's useful if you can see the word. Then when you've got those flashcards, when you've done a bit of repetition where you've introduced the words and got people to repeat it, you could then use those flashcards to play some kind of game. So there's all sorts of things you can do. I'm sure you can really use your imagination. So some games I sometimes play is Read My Mind, where you choose a flashcard but you hide it so that no one else can see what picture it is, and the pupil has to try and guess. They have to say in French the body part that they think is on your flashcard. Or you can do sort of, you can play a game where you lay them all out but you've taken one away and can they work out which one is missing, that sort of thing. You can play fly swat, which I think we've done in most of my classes. We've played that, where you don't need a fly swat, you can just use your hand, but you lay out the pictures and then you would shout out in English the word and you have to hit the French, for example. So that might be something you could do with flashcards. So for that you would just need some paper. Or you might want to use real life objects to introduce the vocabulary. So let's say, for example, you're doing family members, you might want to use photos of your real family. That could be something you could use. Or if you're doing animals, you might have some stuffed toys that you could use for each of the animals. So it's up to you. You're just going to decide how you're going to introduce the vocabulary to your pupils. Then the next stage is, what could you do to get them to practice? When you're learning new French vocabulary, you need to keep going over it, otherwise your pupil will forget it. So they need to do some kind of activity to practice it. So could you make them a worksheet? Could you do a little speaking task? You might want to play a game. We've mentioned fly swat or maybe bingo, something like that. or you can make them a puzzle. So puzzlemaker.discoveryeducation.com is a really good website where you can put the words in that you want to teach your pupil, and it will make a puzzle for you, and then you can download it. So that might be something you want to do. And finally, how can you check that your pupil is remembering some of the vocabulary, some of the words that you've taught them? So could you be mean and set them a homework, or do you want to give them a test, or could you make a little quiz for them at the end of the lesson to see how much they can remember? So what I'd like you to do, this is very brief, it doesn't have to be very long. At the top, there's a document which will be on the website along with the vocabulary sheet in this video. And I'd like you to fill it in. If you don't have a printer, that's fine. You can just write this in your science book. So you put your name of the teacher, so that's your name of pupil, that's whoever you're teaching, and the topic that you're going to introduce. So let's say body parts. Then you're just going to write a sentence to explain how you're introducing the vocabulary. So you might say, I will use flashcards to introduce body parts. I will play, after I've introduced the vocabulary, I will play Read My Mind. Something like that. So a sentence or two. We'll practice the vocabulary by doing a worksheet. I will check my pupil to remember the vocabulary by giving them a quiz. And then at the end, I want your pupil to give some feedback on the lesson. So what was their favourite part of the lesson? Did they find anything difficult? What did they enjoy? Did they find were you a good teacher? So obviously, if you're teaching someone who lives at home with you, you could get them to fill that section in. If not, they could just give you their feedback verbally and you could write it in for them. So I'd love to see what you're getting up to with this. So please feel free to tweet any pictures of you teaching your lessons or the resources that you've made, or your feedback if you get some good feedback from your pupil. So you could obviously tweet them or send them to me or your class teacher. That'd be fabulous. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Take care. Au revoir.